Hello students, welcome to this session of Master Mains PYQ, a unique initiative by NEXT IAS. So we are back with yet another video in this series. So today we will be discussing another question that was asked by UPSC in this year's mains. I hope you guys have already written answer to this particular question. So I'll be straight away jumping into the question without further delay. So the question was asked, this was the second question in your GS2 paper. So the question was, who is entitled to receive free legal aid? Assess the role of National Legal Services Authority NALSA in rendering free legal aid in India. It was a 10 marker, 150 words. So this again comes under the polity area of your syllabus, and the exact area where you can locate this would be institutions and bodies created for vulnerable sections, right? So what was the rationale for UPSC asking this question? See, NALSA is in news every year, right? Access to justice is a big concern for India. After the COVID pandemic, access to justice for the poor and vulnerable sections, the recent reports on under trials, etc. So there is a lot of rationale for asking this particular question, right? So the next thing that you need to decide is what would be the demand of the question. So if you look at this particular question, this is fairly straightforward. The question is asking who is entitled to receive free legal aid, right? So we will straight away jump into how would we introduce this particular question, what would be the introduction in this particular question. So since the question is about NALSA, you can write a little bit about access to justice and how you can locate access to justice in the Indian Constitution. So access to justice is recognized by International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights as one of the most basic rights of human beings. And if you read Indian Constitution, we have Article 39A read with Articles 14 and 21, which basically provide for free legal aid for the poor and vulnerable sections of the society, right? So in pursuance of Article 39A of the Constitution, the Parliament passed the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987. Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987, which basically institutionalized NALSA at the national level, and several other bodies were institutionalized at state and district level, right? So this is the framework. This is what you need to write in the introduction. Now the first part of the question is that you have to write about who is entitled to receive free legal aid. That is the first part. Now if you look at this particular question, there is one part who is entitled to receive free legal aid, and then there is assess the role of NALSA in rendering free legal aid in India. Now the directive used in the question by UPSC is assess. Assess means to provide an assessment, to provide an evaluation, right? Now access to justice, yes, NALSA is doing a lot of things in India, but definitely there are concerns. Not everyone is having access to justice. The data on under trials, the data of domestic violence, etc., is clearly portraying that access to justice is a concern still in India, right? So you have to provide a balanced viewpoint of what NALSA has achieved so far, right? And what are the shortcomings and impediments in this regard. But first, we have to decide to what extent we have to write what part. Now, if you look, who is entitled to receive free legal aid? Now, that's a very static part of the question, right? So, you need to just summarize that what are the eligibility criteria of the beneficiary. So, that should not be more than 25% of your answer. The rest 75% of the answer would go in assessing NALSA and free legal aid, the framework of free legal aid in India, right? So we will just go on to the persons entitled, right? So who all are entitled? Scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, right? SCs and STs, victims of trafficking, victims of trafficking, women and children, right? People who are mentally ill or disabled, a person who has gone through tough times through a disaster, natural because of a natural calamity, or suffered violence on caste or ethnic grounds, etc. Right? A person who is an industrial workman, right? So these are the beneficiaries. Other than that, individuals who are in custody, right? So a person who is in custody for because right, he's in a juvenile justice home or a psychiatric home, right? Or is in prison, right? So these kinds of people. And also there is an income eligibility. There is an income eligibility on who can avail the benefits of NALSA, of this but of the various schemes of NALSA. So that income eligibility is provided under section 12H of the Legal Services Authorities Act of 1987 for Supreme Court. And there is an income threshold that is less than 5 lakh rupees, right? For the states, they have to prescribe an income eligibility, right? So these are the various categories of people. These are the categories which are recognized by NALSA for free legal aid in India. Now coming on to the second part of the question, that we have to provide an assessment of the role of National Legal Services Authority in rendering free legal aid in India, right? So that is a crucial part of your answer. It will cover the next 75% of your answer. So you have to understand that yes, NALSA has been and is able to do a lot, right? Definitely the institution has come up with new schemes and programs. So much has been done on this front, but there are concerns. So first we'll highlight that what all things NALSA has been able to achieve. So we will create the first part, the first heading in your body. So the heading in your body would go as role of NALSA in providing free legal aid, right? Now as far as the role of NALSA goes, so NALSA is responsible for providing free legal assistance to the poor and vulnerable sections of the society. That is the idea behind Article 39A. That is the objective of Legal Services Authorities Act. So NALSA is basically coming up with initiatives, right? New kinds of initiatives to ensure that they are organizing camps in various areas of the country which are not within the reach, right? So the underserved areas, it is organizing legal camps, etc., to ensure that the poor and needy have access to justice. Similarly, the next important point that you can highlight, that in order to provide a legal representation across the 3 tiers of judiciary, NALSA has institutionalized various schemes, right? So there are various schemes of NALSA that has been institutionalized, and the poor and the needy who are the beneficiaries of those schemes, who fall in the eligibility criteria, can avail those schemes to avail legal aid through NALSA. Now the recent data, I will talk about recent data of NALSA. It highlighted that between 2017 to 2022, more than 1.03 crore peoples have benefited from free legal aid in India, right? And the quantum of jump was seen maximum in the year 2021-2022, which constituted of 60% of this total number, right? 5 states they saw this jump in huge numbers there, that they were Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, and Assam. Right, so they saw the maximum quantum of this jump. So NALSA has been able to cater to the needs of the peoples in these particular areas. Also, NALSA, in order to ensure outreach, right, to the people and to ensure a legal awareness, so NALSA is facilitating clinical legal education programs, clinical legal education programs, and various legal aid clinics, right, in various institutions of the country, colleges, universities, and other institutions. So the basic purpose of these clinical legal education programs and legal aid clinics is to ensure that there is enough awareness, there is about people's legal rights and basic rights, right. And one of the examples that you can take for this initiative is the legal literacy clubs in various schools and colleges, through which they are trying to instill legal awareness. The legal literacy club, right, through which they are trying to instill awareness in the students, right, of various universities and colleges, right. Moving on, the next important initiative of NALSA has been promotion of ADR and Lok Adalats. So ADR and Lok Adalats. So NALSA promotes ADR, that is basically a means of resolving a dispute through mediation, conciliation, and amicable resolution. And we know about Lok Adalat, which is a very cost-effective method of dispute resolution in India. Right. So NALSA is responsible for doing that in India. NALSA also provides for counseling services. It provides for counseling services to aid and advise the victims of different kinds of violence, such as domestic violence. It also provides legal aid to the under trial prisoners to ensure that they have sufficient representation in the court. NALSA also tries to reach to the victims of human trafficking. So it ensures that they get proper rehabilitation, ensuring that while they are being rehabilitated, the traffickers also get punishment through the justice delivery system. So these are the initiatives of NALSA, right, to ensure free legal aid and outreach to the poor sections of the society. So this is the first part of your answer. Moving on to the next part of your assessment, that what are the immediate challenges to free legal aid in India, right. So we'll create the next heading. Okay, so the next part of your body, you have to create another heading. What are the challenges? So what are the impediments faced by NALSA in rendering legal aid? Right, so that should be your heading. Now, the very first point that you need to consider here is the issue of capacity, right. So there is a lack of capacity to provide for legal aid. Now, as of March this year, India has 50,394 panel advocates for free legal aid, right. Now, a 2018 study by CHRI, that is the Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative, it highlights 2018 study of CHRI. It basically highlights that India has 5 people to represent for legal aid for every 1 lakh of the population. just 5 lawyers for every 1 lakh of the population for free legal aid. Now that is a severe issue of capacity, right? Now, as if you're talking about capacity, we have to also talk about infrastructure mechanism. So infrastructure mechanism of NALSA, it is also very much skewed. So to ensure that proper legal assistance is provided to everyone, so the NALSA legal services clinical rules of 2011, it suggests that there is a need to set up a legal aid clinic, right, in every village or group of villages. Now, the problem is that as of 2020, there are only 14,159 such clinics operational. Now, if you average that out, it comes down to, it translates to 1 clinic for every 42 cluster of villages, which is not enough to meet the requirements of the population, right? So they are not having enough outreach. Now, the next concern for NALSA is funding. Funding of legal aid in India is also very much skewed. So if we look at the funding aspect, funding legal aid, if you look at various reports on funding, so there are certain reports. For example, there is a 2018 report of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative. The report was titled Hope Behind Bars, and it undertook a study across various states and union territories to come up with a number that the per capita spending on legal aid in India is merely 0.75, which is one of the lowest in the world, right? A very recent study by of Tata Trust, that is India Justice Report, India Justice Report of 2020, it highlights that the per capita spending is not more than rupees 1.05 in India, which is extremely poor if you look at the other developed countries and some of the developing countries, right? So funding legal aid is a big problem. Next problem in India, as far as the legal aid goes, is access and reach, right? The next problem is access and reach, issue of access and reach. Now, the legal aid services mostly are for the poor and the illiterate. Now, the biggest problem here is that most of the times the poor and the illiterate do not know of their basic rights and legal rights. So many of them are not aware of the schemes, right? So this basically is a problem of underutilization of services, right? So this again, access and reach is also a problem. The next problem that we can highlight in the answer is of quality of legal aid. Quality of legal aid. Now, in very recently, in April this year, Justice UU Lalit also criticized of the quality of legal aid provided in India, right? So as far as the quality of legal aid goes, the quality of legal aid is perhaps one of the biggest hindrances in access to justice in India, right? So the quality of legal aid is problematic under NALSA because of 2 reasons. The first reason is competency of lawyers. Right. Most of the lawyers that take up free legal initiatives in free legal aid, they are not competent, they are freshers, so they are not aware. So the quality of legal aid suffers because of that. And the second problem, as far as competency, apart from competency here, is the issue of remuneration. So NALSA has a fixed cap mechanism for payment of lawyers. So a lawyer who is providing free legal aid services cannot charge beyond a certain number per case. Now that is problematic, because often what happens that the lawyers have to spend something from their own pocket for incidental expenses in the cases. So many of the lawyers are discouraged to take up such pro bono initiatives, right? This is a big factor which discourages lawyers from taking up legal aid in India, right? The third problem here is delay of payment. So delay of payments is also a big problem which discourages many of the lawyers from taking up such initiatives, right? So quality of legal aid is also a problem. The next problem that we can highlight is support system. So the next problem is the support system. Now, as far as the support system goes, so there are paralegal volunteers. There are paralegal volunteers, right, whose role is to promote legal aid camps and schemes and outreach to the poor and the weaker sections of the society. But this suffers because they lack proper training, monitoring and verification from the various authorities, right? There is no proper check by NALSA on these paralegal volunteers. So this system is having this kind of a problem. The second problem is the issue of appointments. Now, if you look at the posts of full-time secretaries in various district legal service authorities across India. So there are 669 district legal service authorities, and the post of out of the total posts, only 70% so far has been occupied. So there is an issue of appointment at key positions, and because of this scheme also suffers, right? So these are the various problems that is choking the legal aid mechanism in India. The ADR mechanism is also very poorly utilized in India, right? So these are the problems that you need to highlight in the second part of your answer. Now, coming to the last part of your answer. So this is a very issue based question, right? You can definitely write a conclusion, right? I'm not saying that you should not stop with a conclusion. You can write a conclusion, a suggestive conclusion, a prescriptive conclusion, and you can stop your answer with that. But a better conclusion to this particular answer would be to write some suggestions, some way forward, right? So I would advise you guys to write way forward in this particular answer. So, way forward. So what can be various suggestions that you can give for this problems? The first problem is per capita spending. So budgetary support for NALSA needs to be increased. The second thing that can be done is that provision could be made that companies can provide the CSR benefits to some certain NGOs, or they can provide the CSR donations to NALSA also. So such a provision to increase budgetary support and spending, per capita spending on legal aid can be explored. The second is about awareness. So spreading legal awareness, right? It is very much important. So we can organize various literacy camps, right, to ensure that people are aware of their basic rights and the entitlements that they have under law, right? So this is the second suggestion that you can take. The next important point that you can talk, and it is one of the important reforms that has been echoed since a long time, is that there is a need to increase amount of compensation to lawyers who undertake such initiatives. So compensation also needs to increase, right? The other point that you can talk about is that the legislature and the judiciary should collectively require that every advocate should take on a minimum number of pro bono cases throughout their tenure. It should be made mandatory for certain lawyers, right? So these are the various points that you can highlight as suggestive measures, as corrective measures in this scheme. So this ends the discussion of this answer. I hope you guys are following the videos very carefully. If you like the videos, if you feel that your friends and peers will also benefit, do share it with them. If you have any constructive suggestions, please comment, and do subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you.